ReliaQuest mental performance coaches Dr. Nicole Detling and Derin McMains interview top performers across multiple industries to unpack the strategies and the mindset they use to get the job done. Welcome to No Show Dogs, powered by ReliaQuest. Hey, welcome back to the No Show Dogs podcast, powered by ReliaQuest. My name's Derin McMains, and just a few times a year, we want to do an episode where our three full-time mental performance coaches here at ReliaQuest, myself, Dr. Nicole Detling, and Josh Cox, we do our best to help solve the current challenges that leaders like you, our listeners, are potentially facing out in the marketplace. We just want to use our combined 75 plus years of experience on ball fields, battlefields, in arenas, on mountaintops, and in boardrooms, and just to hopefully share some helpful strategies or ways to think about a potentially current leadership challenge that you might be facing right now. And what's cool is right now we're recording this from our Exponent conference, which is right here in Tampa, which is our customer conference. And we've been surrounded by hundreds of world-class leaders from multiple industries, healthcare, finance, tech, retail, just to name a few. And we've had a really cool opportunity just to spend some time with them and ask, like, hey, what's on your mind? Like, what are some current leadership challenges that you're facing? And three big themes came up that we're going to run at today. One was burnout. Another one is managing change. And then the last one is around trust. I mean, I think these are really like the Mount Rushmore of leadership challenges, right?
Absolutely.
And I think everyone probably listening to this is going to go, oh yeah, like how can we help with that? So let's just jump right into this first one around burnout. And the questions that we all got on separate occasions were, you know, how do I get better at managing burnout in myself, or how do I get better at help managing burnout in the teams that I get to lead? So that's kind of where we're at. And before we get started on this, let's make sure we provide the right definition of burnout, right? Christina Maslik has done a great job of really breaking this down. A lot of great research out there. And she talks about there's really three key dimensions of burnout. Those are overwhelming exhaustion, feelings of cynicism, and detachment from the job. Keyword, and. You got to have all three, right? It's not one of three, two of three. It's all three.
And hold on,
yeah.
It's got to be chronic too.
Oh, good call, yeah.
Because we all feel that way from time to time.
Yeah.
We all have those days when we feel all three of those things. It's an and.
Yeah.
But if it's a day, if it's a week, that's not necessarily burnout. Chronic, feeling those chronically means you felt those for 6 weeks, a minimum of 6 weeks, all day, every day. That's when you can identify as, yeah, I'm burned out. I'm definitely in that category. So, yeah. But there's other words though, right? So when we feel that way, there's other things that we could be feeling other than burnout. And so the two that we talk about the most and what we want to bring up today is what's called staleness, and another that's called bore out. So the reality is most of you who feel burned out are probably more stale. You're feeling more staleness. And that can be termed as like languishing, where you're feeling a lack of motivation. There's a drop in performance. You feel flat, you feel dull, you feel too stressed to care. That's actually called staleness or languishing. And so that's where probably most people are, because the reality is if you are actually burned out, you're not even showing up for work. You're not getting out of bed.
Right.
You're not going throughout your day to day. Whereas if you are showing up physically, maybe not mentally, but physically you're there, you're probably more stale. And we're going to give you some strategies for that today. But then that second one is called bore out. So basically it just means you're bored. You're unstimulated, you're unfocused, you're restless, yet you're also lacking that desire to engage. So you're feeling this dichotomous idea or this dichotomous behavior of you're being bored and you're not challenged yourself, but you don't really feel like challenging yourself. You don't want to challenge yourself. And so it kind of creates this internal struggle sometimes as well. That could leave you feeling exhausted, feeling empty, unable to cope. You feel like your work is pointless. You might just be bored.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to differentiate, because if we don't have language, if we don't have words to help label what we're feeling, then because the most popular word out in culture is burnout, we just label it as burnout. And then sometimes we could talk ourselves into it, you know? But with that all being said, what we want to do today is we want to come at it from a little bit different angle, because we believe there's a lot of great resources out there. We believe a lot of people have tackled burnout a lot. And so we want to talk about it a little bit differently. And Doc kind of set us up. I think you shared a great story with us and the work you did with the United States Olympic speed skating team kind of around this idea. And so if you could just kind of set us up on where we're headed for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So leading up to 2010 Vancouver Winter Olympics, I did a lot of work with US speed skating, and I primarily worked with the short track team. And so we were heading into, I believe it was the winter of 2009, so the year before the games, and we were hearing from the athletes that they felt burned out. Like, we're just burned out, we're exhausted, we need some time off. Yet, as many people know, the training cycles literally are set out for 4 years to help you peak at the games. And so our physiologists, our head coaches, everyone is in this place of, we got to stick to the schedule if we really want to be our best when it matters most. So we can't give you extra time off. We can't give you the things that you're asking for if we want to be the best then. And so we started paying attention to the culture, and all of us got into a room one day, and we kind of determined that our athletes weren't burned out. They weren't overtrained. They were feeling the symptoms of that, but that's not actually what they were feeling. What we realized is that they were under-recovered. So they weren't overtrained, they were under-recovered.
That's a huge point.
So we put this huge emphasis on recovery. What are you doing to recover? Recovery is easy to skip physically, right? You go through these hard trainings, these hard practices, and you don't feel like foam rolling. You don't feel like getting in the cold tub. You don't feel like spending the extra time stretching. So a lot of athletes were skipping that, not realizing the importance of it, or just they were minimizing it. And so we spent a lot of time teaching them how to recover properly. And we added that into the schedule, made sure people stuck around. They understood why they needed to recover, how to recover. And I mean, long story short, what ended up happening is we went to the Olympics. We had 10 athletes, and it's still the only time in Team USA history that all 10 athletes came home with a medal. Wow. So we taught them to recover better, which allowed them to withstand that higher level of training. And they no longer necessarily felt burned out. They had tough days, they had tough weeks. Don't get me wrong. Sure. I mean, these are tough athletes for sure, but they were really able to focus on that recovery, which allowed them the opportunity to come back out at the next day and continue to work hard to get ready for the games.
That's such an interesting idea, because I think, especially American culture, the first thought is always, we're going to outwork it. Right. We're going to outwork it. We're going to outwork it. And I just love this approach where you think, well, no, we're working really hard, but what can we do differently? It's not harder work. It's potentially better recovery, which is huge. It's such a great idea to really consider. And so for those of our listeners, maybe that's a different lens to think through. And you know, Cox, I know you've had a crazy amount of experience, 27 years, United States Navy SEAL. I'm sure you all dealt with some of this as well, right? I mean, some of the missions and training that you've been a part of.
Yeah, first of all, what I think about is, when I first rose to the echelon of leadership, where I was a troop commander and I oversaw what is our 2-year schedule. So it's planned out for 2 years. This is a schedule, kind of like the run up to the games, but it's a schedule of all the training we're going to do, and then we're going to go on a deployment, right? And we always plan in gear weeks, what we call gear weeks, but essentially we go do some training for 3 weeks somewhere away from our home base. And then we come back for a week to de-jock that gear and everybody see their families, and then load up the trucks and all the gear for the next training that's usually something different. It's another 3-week trip, and it's just like that for a year and a half, really. And I remember the feelings of burnout from those gear weeks that are meant to be recovery time, like downtime, but people feel like, well, we're not working enough. We're going on a combat deployment. We've got to be getting ready. And we would always end up filling those weeks, even though it's only a short week back, with some training that was usually something we didn't even really need to be focused on in the first place. And so when I first got to that echelon of leadership, when I sat down with the leaders underneath me, my direct reports, and I told them, hey guys, this time, I don't know how you did it the previously, but for this time, there will be no training approved by me during gear weeks. And you're all going to agree to it now and be like, yeah, but I'm telling you, I already know about a year from now, when you're feeling the itch, we're getting closer to deployment, you're going to be like, we need to be doing more. And I'm going to say, no, you're not going to do that, to try to prevent from getting there in the first place, right? So that's the bigger idea. But then you get on deployment, and now you're going on missions every night, every other night. One of my busiest deployments I was in country for 188 days, and we did 106 missions in those 188 days. So basically one every other night. Yeah. Wow. And so you definitely get into a rhythm, but there's opportunity for burnout there for sure. But I'll tell you, for the guys that I've seen do the best, myself included, had a routine. And it wasn't like you look tired, just go get some sleep. It wasn't like an ad hoc thing. And they had a very strict routine that they would do. And in fact, it usually involved the gym. So we think about like, yeah, we're out wearing heavy gear and carrying guns and doing Navy SEAL things, which is definitely exercise. But the gym time when you get off or like when you first get up before a mission was more of like a mental break. So it's like mindless activity in a sense, and it helped guys recover from a mental and emotional standpoint, not necessarily like breaking their bodies down. Just that mindless time in the gym is almost a meditative thing,
Yeah, I think that brings up a really important point where a lot of people feel that when you're feeling feelings of burnout, what's the best thing to do? Take some time off. And so people will go on a vacation or they'll do something different. Sure. But the problem then is if you don't do something different when you come back, you're coming right back into the same situation that you left. Yeah. And so it's really how you're spending your time on that matters more than taking time off, because then you just come back to the same thing. So and that's kind of what you're talking about too, is like that was kind of time off, but you were utilizing it in a way that was going to be appropriate to helping you come back at it with more aggressiveness or the intensity that you needed.
There's actually a great Saturday Night Live skit with Adam Sandler where he's running this like vacation rental club, and he's like, just remember, if you come over here and you're having problems in your marriage, when you come back from your vacation, you're still going to be having problems in your marriage. Exactly. It's like a really funny skit from Saturday Night Live, but it's absolutely true, right?
Yeah, that's good, Doc. I know, because we've said in the past, like, time off will not heal you if your problem is how you spend your time on.
Exactly.
Right? And so it's figuring out those strategies and those types of things. And we got a couple other things that I know we want to cover, but I'll kind of leave leaders with this. I know sometimes when we hear a new strategy or a new idea, a new filter, new perspective, a way to think about something, when we hear that, we tend to over-rotate on it. And we go, oh, yes, it's all about recovery, right? Because at the end of the day, there's still an outcome that needs to be delivered. Correct. Execution matters. I can tell you specifically, I think about one season in particular, I won't talk about the team or what happened, but we missed the playoffs by 2 games. And I remember we over-rotated on recovery. And we started really talking a lot about sleep and circadian rhythms. And one of our performance team members shared with our team during a very tough stretch road trip late in the year during a playoff push on when they can expect to underperform because of all the different travel and time zone. Like it was like, anyway, that person was removed from the organization. But what happened was it was like, hey, like the game was at 6:40 or the game was at 7:05. Like the game doesn't care how you feel, because at one point you got to execute, right? And so anyway, so I just share that, and that sometimes we over rotate on this, and as important as this is, it's just something to really consider. How are you recovering? And then again, maybe we can do a future episode on how to really optimize your time on.
Yes. Because
I know there's 2 other things we want to cover today. Yeah. And so the second one that I mentioned we're going to talk about is leading through change, and how and what we heard a lot around here. I mean, everybody's dealing with this, right? AI and just how fast AI is kind of changing everything. So a lot of people's roles are changing, processes, systems, playbooks, how you do things is changing pretty consistently. The speed of change is probably faster than it's ever been. And so if you can imagine the anxiety around change, helping people stay focused on the outcome or the mission, right, or around change. And so for leaders, the thing that we're hearing a lot of around here, and again, you listeners, we know you're struggling with this too, is like, how do you best do that, right? And so what are some things, Doc, that you've seen in your career, in sport, and even in business now? I mean, you've been doing this a long time too now. What are some things that you've seen that maybe you could help our listeners with and thinking about how to lead better through change?
Yeah, for me, it comes down to 3 things. 3 things that I came up with the idea as we were thinking through these questions: clarity, empathy, and support. So when change happens, making sure that you're communicating in transparency and giving people information for what is the change? Why is it happening? How is that going to impact people? And as if the change is continuous, continuing to communicate that. And like we say around here, if you tell them once, you've never told them. So you think you have this one big meeting and you think you've made it very clear. Not everyone necessarily heard that, because people are emotional. They're in emotional states when change happens and anxiety's there. So continuing that communication. The empathy piece, like understanding that change is impactful for people, even good change can cause anxiety. Like people are just uncomfortable with change. And so providing a little bit of empathy, understanding that people are feeling the way that they're feeling and allowing them and guiding them through that experience, I think can be helpful. And then that support, just letting them know, hey, if you need some extra support on this, if this is something you're struggling with, here's who you go to. So being open for questions, being able to provide the opportunity for people to ask the questions that they have, whether it's you as the leader or someone else in the organization, but people kind of know who to go to get some of that support they might need to help them through the change. So that's it for me. Clarity, empathy, and support.
Yeah, Cox, what do you got, man? What do you think about this?
Yeah, for me, I completely agree with that. I go back to, in the SEAL teams on the battlefield is constantly evolving. So you're constantly adapting to the change in the environment and of the battlefield, which that's what drives you to do operations. You're collecting intelligence. The battlefield's changing daily, sometimes hourly. And then based on the intelligence, the information you're gathering, you've got to change and you have to go do something about it, right? And when we're trying to get a mission approved, we always start with why and then why now. So it's the same kind of lines, right? So I think a lot of these issues with that clarity, in change is solved by explaining the why, but almost more importantly, because people know things inherently got to change. Everybody, it's no secret that people, change is good, evolve or die, all the things. But it's like, hey, this is why we have to change right now. Like, this is why it makes sense for us to do this now, and emphasizing why it has to happen today or this quarter or whatever, and providing that clarity in that context adds. Because inherently people know we've got to change, but explaining why it's important right now, something that really makes a difference.
Yeah, I want to add one question in there that I think leaders can, if you're realizing that someone's really struggling with something and they're really uncomfortable, just asking them the question of what would it take for you to feel comfortable right now?
Yeah.
And giving them the opportunity to tell you, because it might be something simple that you recognize a lot of people need: another meeting, another explanation, just sit down with me one more time. It might be something simple that you could then handle and people can move forward from there.
I do think the empathy thing is huge too. Like I say all the time, guys at RQ have heard, I beat people up with this, like, hey, everybody's a star of their own movie. Yeah. And you need to recognize that as a leader when you're dealing with people. You're the leader, you're the big boss man or woman, but whoever you're talking to is the star in their own movie. And so keep that in mind, that this change may have some kind of a weird effect on them. And if you go into that conversation, kind of think of it that way, it makes it a little easier to relate to what they may be feeling going through it.
No Show Dogs is brought to you by ReliaQuest, a global leader in cybersecurity. ReliaQuest helps enterprise cybersecurity teams contain threats in minutes with its AI-powered security operations platform, Gray Matter. ReliaQuest makes security possible for the most trusted enterprise brands in the world. Learn more at ReliaQuest.com. I would add one thing. I love clarity, empathy, support, and the clarity around why and why now. But I think with so much change, and it's not going to slow down, we know that. Like, I think it just really highlights the importance, like the work you can do left of change, which would be building relationships, right? Because now more than ever, I just believe that relationships are one of the key currencies. Because when somebody asks me to change or somebody asks me to do something different, it's going to hurt, right? Mentally, physically, whatever it might be, it's going to bother me, right? It's going to be annoying. I was thinking about this today and sitting in the main session, and I was thinking like what if somebody came out and just went, hey, I need everybody to just move over 2 seats. Just get up and move 2 seats. And I was thinking like, that'd be an interesting way to see how people respond, and then ask the question, how many of you were annoyed that I just asked you to move 2 seats?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And probably at least half the room. And that's probably the simplest change we can make. But then you start walking people through it and you go, but the people that knew me, the people like, oh, D-Mac, he does weird stuff like this. This is kind of expected. They would just move because they're like, hey, I wonder what point he's going to make. People that I've never met would be like, who's this knucklehead? Like, what's he? I'm comfortable here, right?
Right.
So anyway, I was just really thinking about just the power of building relationships. So when we provide the why now, right? The clarity. Empathy is going to feel more natural, right? Because you just know someone. And then support feels authentic because, oh, hey, I know you have my best interest in mind. We built that relationship.
Right.
And so I would just challenge leaders. I mean, not only does it make it a better workplace, not only does it allow you to get, for you to enjoy your work more, but to help the people that you get to serve and lead enjoy their work more. I mean, it's going to allow you to lead through change better when you've built that relationship.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Actually, while you were just saying that question, I was thinking Yeah, I'll just move because it's DMAC. Like that's what I was
Sure.
thinking, right?
Right.
I know what you.
Yeah.
And I might do that in the future, by the way.
When you're showing empathy, that it also feels more genuine.
100%.
Too. So because you've built that relationship.
Yeah.
If you're someone who never shows empathy and you're trying to show empathy during that change and trying to build a relationship, it's not going to work out that well.
I was thinking, and I think this is probably the art of leadership when it comes to empathy. And I'll share an example, personal example that literally my family went through probably like a month ago. So my daughter's I have a 6th grader. She's playing basketball for the first time, right? Never played before. Pretty good athlete, but she's never played. And so she's playing on the junior high team. And as you can imagine, if you've never played basketball before, traveling, double dribble, fouling, the whole thing, right?
Sure.
And it doesn't look great. And the excuse she would use every time was valid. I've never played basketball before. Right. And so we're having dinner and my wife and I, we're talking through like, well, hey, this, well, I've never played before. And about the 3rd week, I said, hey, you're not allowed to say you've never played before. No more. Because she was giving herself freedom to continue to make mistakes, right? Now, again, she didn't take that well, as you can imagine.
Sure she did not.
But as an 11-year-old girl would. But I can tell you the coolest thing is we haven't heard her say once, well, I've never played before anymore.
And has she improved?
Exponentially,
There you
right?
go.
And so when I think about leading through change, always be empathetic, but there is a point, again, and I think it's probably the art,
right,
where it's like, you can only lean on, well, I've never done this before. Well, this is new to me, right? It's like you can only lean on that excuse for so long. I guess it's a reason at one point it becomes an excuse. I don't know where that is, but just something for leaders to consider, right?
That's really powerful too, because words matter, man, so much.
Yeah.
I use this a lot where it's like, well, this is my strong hand and this is my weak hand. It's like, why are you late? No, this is my strong hand.
This
is my strong hand. This is my other strong hand. You know what I mean? Like, why am I going to label something as weak or like give myself the excuse that I'm automatically not going to be as good with this thing? Don't do that. Like words matter. You know what I mean?
100%.
So that's great.
Right. I mean, one more tip for leaders on that, if that's what you continue to hear is I've never done this before or something around that, the language being used in that way as an excuse, you can ask them, well, you've been here for 2 weeks. What have you learned during that time?
Oh, that's great.
I understand you're new to this, but what have you learned in the last 2 weeks? And start emphasizing what people are learning rather than what they don't know.
Yeah.
What do you know? What have you learned? And that can help maybe move them out of that.
That's such a great empathetic way to say it.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Because you're meeting them where they're at and you're pushing them forward too,
Right.
which is, that's high level leadership. That's world class. Way to go, Doc. I love that. Okay, last one. Let's talk about trust. I know we're getting towards the end of this. So trust. This one came up a lot as well. And trust in a lot of different areas. I mean, there's trust around getting passed over for an internal promotion. There's how quickly can we build trust with new employees? And then there's a really tough one is how do you rebuild trust after layoffs, right? I'll read this real quick as we kind of set this up, but I was kind of looking for some research and things that supported this idea and found an Inc.com article in 2023. And it said employees that report having high trust have 106% more energy. I really don't know what that means, to be honest with you.
How do you have
I don't know how you have 106%
It's an interesting metric.
more
Yeah, that's a
energy.
weird metric.
So let's just start there.
Okay, all right.
So I guess when coaches say we give 110%, I guess it's possible. I used to think that wasn't possible, according to Inc.com.
Well, at least 106.
At least 106. Thank you. So
Maybe
anyway,
not 110, but at least 106.
anyway,
You can get there.
106% more energy, 76% more engagement, 50% more higher productivity, 40% less burnout, which you talked about earlier, and 74% less stress. Now, again, these numbers, take them for what they are, but what we do know is that employees with high trust have more energy, more engaged, greater productivity. Like we can't argue any of this, right? And so this idea around trust is huge. So, Doc, what are some strategies, things that you would share with our listeners around this idea?
Well, part of it goes back to what we were just talking about, the clarity, the empathy, and support. I mean, you're not going to build trust if you don't have that. If you don't have the relationships, you definitely have to build those things from the beginning. But to me, there's two really simple ways to build trust, and it's say what you do and do what you say. And maybe we should start with do what you say. Mm-hmm. So that's that clarity of communication. If I say I'm going to do something, I better go do it. Yeah. And if I don't go do it, why would you trust anything I say in the future that I say I'm going to do? And then say what you do in terms of if for some reason I wasn't able to do that thing, I need to come back to you and explain why I wasn't able to do it. Not an excuse, but just say, hey, I wasn't able to get that done. I couldn't get the information that I needed. I'm still working on it. I'm going to go back and get that. But here's where I am now. So I think a lot of it comes down to integrity right? Do what you say you're going to do and say what you do. If you mess up, don't be afraid to admit you messed up. Say, hey, that's on me. I made that mistake. I mean, here at ReliaQuest, we talk about it's not about the fault, it's about the fix, right? So we all make mistakes. We recognize that, but what are we going to do to fix it? How do we focus forward to fix that thing? And then the last thing I'll say about that is, as humans, we are all storytellers. So we tell ourselves stories to make sense of our world. And when there's gaps in the facts of the story, we will automatically fill them in to try to make sense of something and to understand it. So as a leader, if you leave no gaps, people will then trust what's happening because they have a full understanding of it. So always tell the entire story. Tell the parts of the story that you're able to tell. And if you can't tell part of the story for some reason, you can say, I'm sorry, I can't share that with you right now. You know, that's proprietary information or it's customer, whatever it might be. But when you fill in that gap by saying, I can't share that with you right now, then the brain isn't going to make up a story and fill in the gaps itself. And then they can trust what you're saying going forward because you've given them the information.
Sure. That's so good. And when I think about that gap in story, like when we don't know the whole story, we're going to create a story. Combine that with our negativity bias.
Yep.
And that story's not going to be good. Like, you know, like I say this all the time, but it's like if for some reason my wife doesn't call me when she says she's going to call me, I don't go, you know, I bet she's having the best day ever.
Yeah.
I don't think that. I'm like, I hope she's okay.
Yeah.
I hope, you know, I hope she's all right. Like all of a sudden I start telling myself a story that's jacked up.
Of course.
I wish I didn't do that, but I do. And Cox, when I think about your career, man, as a SEAL, trust, I mean, it comes down to lives, you know? And so like how do you guys build trust? How do you see that?
So I do think, have you guys ever heard the term, anxiety grows in the garden of the unknown?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I haven't, but I like that.
Yeah. So it's like, and that's where like the parts of the story that you omit or you can't share, if you don't at least say that, that's where that anxiety builds because people, they're going to use their negativity bias to come up with the worst possible scenario, right? And I just talked about this morning with, you know, the most effective ways I've seen of developing trust in high-performing teams. And I think we all agree a high-performing team is a trusting team.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Obviously. So the first one is consistency in action. The best leaders I've ever seen, they're highly consistent. They model the behavior of what they want to see first. They're even-keeled. When things are going great, they don't get too high. When things are going poorly, they don't get too low. They're very even-keeled, and they're the same person that everybody gets in every interaction. They don't fly off the handle with one person and then they're totally calm with another person. That's making people wonder like which one's the real you? Sure. You know what I mean? So
and which version am I going to get today?
Exactly, right? Yeah. So it's a consistency in action is one, and then shared experience is another one. And I think this is a big one it's like a misnomer. It's something that leaders get wrong often. And it's actually a way to not develop trust, which is when people are in charge, they feel like when something goes wrong or something's bad, because they're in charge, they need to shield the team from it. I'm going to be a good leader. I'm going to take care of my people and totally shield them, right? Well, make no mistake. You want to be a leader, you're going to have to get in the mud. It's tough sometimes. But you're robbing your teammates and your subordinates from development when you don't let them stick a toe in the mud as well and feel it when somebody makes a mistake, right? And like we know this all too well on the SEAL teams. I could be the best leader on the battlefield, but I'm one headshot away from the next person taking command.
Right.
So we have to be developers. And if you wanted people to trust you, you have to develop them to where you show that you're not concerned that they're gonna take your job. So you don't want to leave out information. You don't want to develop them where they could potentially be better than you. Right? Yeah. But you want to bring them along. And I think that's a big way to develop trust too. Those are like two very important things to do.
Those are great. And I will add just a couple to add. One is for leaders, if you have the opportunity to develop the whole person, it's not just about work skills.
Yes.
Right? When
Correct.
someone knows you're bought into them as a human being,
yes.
Beyond just this particular skill at work, like that's going to help build more trust because they feel seen, right? And they know that you care about them more than just what they can do at work. And the last, I'll just share this around intentionally giving public praise or public rewards, right? Like, because, you know, if you're one of those people that, you know, behind closed doors, you're going to, hey, that was a great job. But then you're quick to criticize in front of other teammates. Like that's obviously going to cut at trust. But I'll give a quick, simple example as we wrap up here. I was sharing this with a leader the other day. And we're talking about the extra work that he has asked his team to do, run at something really important. They had to go above and beyond. And the conversation was around like, hey, what are you going to do for them to recognize and reward them for the great extra work that they've done? Just something simple, right? And the first thought was, well, hey, let's go out and have a big team dinner together. And I was quick to say like, yeah, that's a good thought, but they've been spending a lot of time with the team, right?
Sure.
So,
Yeah, sure.
right. It will probably feel like a reward. Like you think it's a great reward,
Yeah.
but it's like, I would prefer to spend a little bit more time at home. And so let's take that same idea and why don't we give them a gift card for dinner with their spouse or their family,
Yes.
right? Because, hey, we appreciate. So now you're impacting their family, letting them know like, hey, I see you. We know that we took time away from you and your family.
And a point of pride for the family.
100%, right? And then we even took it a step further. It's like, and then why don't you give them a gift card from your favorite restaurant? Because, or there, like figure one or the other, because you're like, hey, me and my wife go to this restaurant all the time, and we just want you to go enjoy a nice dinner on us or whatever, or find out what their favorite restaurant is versus just a Amazon gift card that we just kind of push through, right? So it's just those little extra things, like where can you build trust? Because we all know you want employees operating with 106% more energy. So anyway,
I got one more for you. And this was
we gotta wrap this up, guys.
This was just told to me. This was just told to me that for relationship development is always find out whoever it is, their significant other's first name. It's so much harder to be mean to somebody or be rude to someone when you know their spouses or their significant other's first name. And I feel like I do that naturally, but I never thought of it like that before. But when you know, it's true. Like I know your husband's name, it's harder for me to be anything other than sweet to you. You know what I mean? It's the same for you. Like knowing your wife's name, like it just immediately changes how I feel about our relationship because I feel like I'm a part of your life now.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's good.
I just had never thought of it like that.
Yeah. All right. We're going to get in trouble if we don't wrap this up.
No, I know. The beauty of recording this at a conference is that how obviously exciting it is, how fun it is. We get to be around all our customers and all these world-class leaders. At the same time, we're taking up a space where people need to meet. Yeah. So with that being said, again, we're just so grateful, that our listeners, subscribers, you guys continue to tune in. We hope that you enjoy this episode. Again, a little bit different this time, allowing us to just kind of share our hard-earned wisdom along the way. If you like this, let us know. Shoot us an email, subscribe, give us 5 stars, whatever it may be. And again, go out and make it a great day.